Welcome to World Unity Week, day 5. My gosh. So today we're going to talk about symbiotic upcycling on our pentad. So let me share my screen. Ta-da! How does evolution really happen in animals like us? If you know me, you know I'm a baboon nut, and I did my doctoral work on these baboons. And the middle one is the gelada baboon, which was the inspiration for Dunbar's number. So how does evolution work? Well, it's diversity in populations. We have this idea of like Noah's Ark, he's choosing the two animals, the two ideals of each kind of animal, like it's an essence, but it's not. Of course, it's a population of diverse individuals. So, natural selection, some things work better than others, and the whole population shifts. That's evolution. So it's not one standard animal that keeps doing it. The other thing is we have this idea of life competing, the struggle for survival. And there's definitely some of that going on. But in general, life actually avoids wasting its energy and life on competition. It'll go for the low-hanging fruit. These are these walking palms, and if they don't have the light they need, they just walk away to a sunnier spot. So over time, organisms are getting more and more unique and specific to their habitat. And so they're diversifying. These are Darwin's finches. And you can see their bills changed shape to focus on different kinds of seeds because they were avoiding competition with each other. And so as they get more and more specific, what they do is they actually invest in diverse exchange with other organisms. A flower needs a bee to pollinate it, and it's really a system that's much bigger than the actual creature. So here's one example that originally the plants were all aquatic. They had very feeble little roots. They couldn't really move on to terrestrial habitats, but the fungus supplemented their roots and allowed them to penetrate the terrestrial ecosystem. And now, by investing in their partners this way and then growing that trust and capability, wow, now 95% of the plants on Earth are supported by this investment. So it's a beautiful thing, and it's a deep pattern that is the origins of life. So life is always trying to surf for free on these patterns. It doesn't try to invent something or make a dam or stop something. It works with the patterns that are already in existence and enhances those. So we evolved in this. We're an organism like any of Darwin's finches, and we evolved to create conditions conducive to life and to invest in our partners and all these same things as every other creature. We are meta-eco engineers. So meta-ecological engineers. So you might know about like beavers or elephants are radically changing the architecture of their environment all the time. And we do that too. But we do it by influencing keystone species that create these large cascades and entire shifts of the ecology. And we do it through these creative disturbances. California, Native Americans were expert with cultural burns, and they did it to increase the diversity of opportunities in their environment. And they use, these bodies of knowledge, wisdom, culture that accumulate over tens of thousands of generations. And they have to be mentored intergenerationally, and it's maintained and renewed through practice. So today, all of that knowledge is really eroded and lost. I don't know how to make rope out of agave fibers. And when everything goes to hell, I might need that knowledge. So I hope someone remembers how to do it. So today, all of our best practices, what we take for granted as the right way to do things, were actually imposed on our ancestors and to plunder our community wealth. And, not just colonialism, but going back, this is a deep pattern. And you kind of see these civilizations have this like 2,000-year arc, almost like an ant colony has an arc, a developmental arc, just like we do as individuals. And so what is this thing? What is this thing that's messing with our biology? And I think it's the elephant in the room, the machine for extraction of global assets, mega corporation, Acme Roadrunner Club. As a result of, you can just buy it on the shelf, right? You need something, just buy it. we're just really blind and illiterate to the way that life actually works, how life adapts to change. And not only that, but we are ignorant of our own human nature. We have this idea that we're just super smart chimpanzees with these big brains, but that's really not true because we've had a radical change in our social structure. So my goal, my mission is to try to rehumanize life and work, that we can adapt and thrive the way that we evolved to do. We have all this potential in us, and our systems and structures and processes are preventing us from enjoying that, the fruits of our labor. So I think we need to see with fresh eyes. This is my son, Desmond. And notice he's looking through a lot of different eyes. And I think that's very important, the pluralism of looking through other perspectives. And even if you think about different animals and different organisms, they're perceiving in radically different ways. And so if we can try to see through other eyes and have that empathy, I think we can get a far more full picture of complexity of life around us. And actually, I wanted to say this is our Borrego Institute for Living Design, and I'm actually raising money for this right now. That's the work that we do there, is helping people see through other eyes for a fresh perspective on life. So we teach them tracking, we do plein air art, observation, and a focus on mythology. So this rehumanization and reconnecting with ancient fragments of human wisdom. So you can, if you'd like to support this effort, I welcome you to go to geoversity.org. We're a 501c3 and you can donate to that. We would love that. And here's some of the work that Geoversity does. I recently went on this transcontinental journey, human powered, with Agar Tejada, who's an indigenous climate activist. And she's a member of the Kuna people there. And this is their autonomous territory. And we drank the water straight out of the river. And it really was radical for me to see a healthy superorganism that emerged from a source of water and the stories that came from that. And, that's the water that births their babies. And so it really is connected. They are part of that river, human being. These are just 2 books I wanted to share with you that are coming out soon. Teeming Transformation is actually really cool. It's a workbook. So it's kind of the content that we're talking about here, but it's very participatory. It is designed for you to write and journal and think about how these patterns apply and manifest in your life and how you can put them to work. Yes. And so I'm actually, because I'm raising money for the Borrego Institute, I'm actually going to donate all my revenues at Team Lab until it's paid off. So that's why I'm sharing this with you. And I do have a course that's coming out. You'll actually get it in color 2 weeks before everybody else. So it's cool. All right, on with the show. Life creates conditions conducive to life. So when there's bare ground, the little things come in, little opportunists. It begins with the lichens and the mosses, and they're actually creating soil that's providing habitat for weeds to come and blow in, those opportunists. And they grow and they start producing shrubs and grasses, and they actually help each other to grow like this. And so then the mycelial fungus come in and you have some infrastructure supporting shrubs and trees. It gets onto this mature ecosystem where it's these trees. So if that continues, you get this. So this is a redwood forest in Santa Cruz. That's where I did my undergrad work. And you can see it's all one kind of tree, all very tall. They're competing for sunlight. I want to introduce this adaptive cycle. And I use this in large companies when they have a lot of different projects as an ecosystem, but I also use it with entrepreneurs to create ecosystems and to become aware of that so they can help each other. So what happens, you get these, mature forests. It's very difficult for a new seed to sprout because there's no sunlight. And so these resources are locked up. And that's kind of similar to, high school students or till college students graduating in a recession, right? Like they just can't get a start. And so they need a disturbance. Disturbance creates opportunity. Fire or a tree falls, they create opportunities, bare ground. what you see here, we have those redwoods. It's all one kind. This is in tropical forest. This is actually in Panama. And because of parasitism, it keeps them very diverse. And the human niche is creating these, creative disturbances. That's what we do. So if we can do it in ecosystems and aware of other players, seeing through other eyes, it's a really powerful strategy. So you see those opportunists can now come in. And this is Harry's favorite, the dandelion, perfect opportunist, and creating conditions conducive to life for other creatures. And then that opens the way for these long-term investors. So what you get actually in a patch is all these different patches that are in different states of maturity. And that increases the diversity. If you have a patch of forest and it's got, bits of disturbed and bits of mature and opportunist, then you have maximum diversity, maximum opportunity. So that's what people have specialized in. And elephants too. So they're knocking over trees and they're opening up the savanna into this mosaic, which of course our ancestors, thrived on. And so that's a deep pattern. So that adaptive cycle is always going on. A company can think strategically about this, where their projects are in this cycle. And then for entrepreneurs, in a city or in a region, we can work together, play off these patches if we're aware of it. That kind of process of disturbance is what keeps the ecosystem healthy, keeps the opportunities available. I do a lot of work with entrepreneur organization, and the founder there is Vern Harnish. And so I was talking to him about this, life doesn't solve problems. And he's like, well, what about the lion and the gazelle? Isn't the lion a problem for the gazelle? And I was like, well, yeah, the lion's a problem for that gazelle. But together, the system of lion and gazelle is healthier. So if we were to give gazelles on a platter to lions, they would become fat and lazy and they would stop being lions. And if we were to, put the gazelle in a cage and keep it safe from the lion, it would get fat and lazy and stop being a good gazelle. So it's the systems and thinking in wider systems that keeps us healthy and keeps these systems healthy. And we talk about right relation, and I've mentioned this before, that the tension, the right tensions of forces and diverse forces are what allows us to achieve these things. And so there's a right relation that makes things happen effectively. And I think that's what we've fallen out of that. We've fallen out of the tension, the health, that lion and gazelle, keeping the systems healthy and in tension, we've lost that. And I think about the wolves of Yellowstone, how they keep the deer moving. And maybe we need to have some metaphorical wolves keeping us moving in our patches. So this is in Panama. This is in the Central Mamani University's campus. And it's incredible there, right? It's like one of the top 8 biodiversity hotspots in the world. And so what you see is that organisms are investing in increasing diversity, increasing exchange, and increasing opportunity, increasing the opportunity space. So the more diversity you get, the more possibilities there are, and the greater what I like to call evolutionary potential for change that they have. So companies or organizations or leaders can think about this. How do we maximize these in order to increase the potential for adapting to change? We talked about humans as superorganisms, that we're not chimpanzees. We're more like ants or termites or honeybees in our social structure. So we fundamentally depend on one another. So this this cute little guy is a naked mole rat, and she is the only superorganism mammal besides us. Also naked, like us, weirdly. But so they're diverse and they're independent individuals, but together they share this common nexus of symbiotic relationships. So they grow value in a territory, in a place, which is interesting to me because I think, you know, with all our migration and the severance migration, you know, people being captive and moved, it's really eroded a lot of these patterns of our source, nature, our identities. So you can see this pattern. Some of these pictures are human settlements and some of them are social insects, but they share that kind of intelligent pattern, like a signature. You can see that. And so we both have this kind of potential within us, all superorganisms do. But if you can see, like, we're just not that good at it. Like here we 70 million hours in traffic in the Netherlands, whereas the leafcutter ants have figured this out. They have these little highways and they keep going, and it's not a problem for them. That's what we're doing, is to look at these deep patterns and how do they accomplish this and what can we do for ourselves to unlock this. So being superorganisms, we have a deep pattern that we share with other ones. So here, these are these termite mounds in Botswana, and they be 30 feet tall, are amazing. But at night, these little termites come out and they collect these scraps of grass and twigs, and they're basically very low quality food, scraps, high fiber, low value. And so nobody else wants them. It's too much work for the return. But the termites, by working together, they can collect these little scraps and they chew it up and they give it to their fungal networks underground, and they feed those to them. And so in the process, the ground gets richer and richer. So the grass grows and it draws these herbivores, you know, the zebras and giraffes. And so their feces are enriching the soil, and then carnivores are coming to feed on them, and their carcasses are enriching the soil. So these territories get richer and richer. And here you can see one of these symbionts, other species that break that value down and keep it in the territory, gathering particulate resources through swarm creativity. Everybody's got different jobs, unique roles. And then it depends on this collective intelligence, where individuals are unique and independent. And so together, they are bringing that together and working with symbionts to upcycle that value, those little scraps, into something valuable that increases the value of the whole territory. And that's linked to their identity. That's their cycle. So this is a deep pattern that all superorganisms share. And it's kind of a fuzzy thing. It's not a scientific thing. It's just a deep pattern that I've observed. And you see it in everything from ants to honeybees, termites, naked mole rats, and even like elephants and orca whales. It's a deep pattern. And I would even include the mycelial networks underground. They use the same kind of pattern, and they're all diverse genetically. So they are diverse individuals. So this is what we've kind of focused on so far, is, you know, the shared identity. They're collecting these resources. They all have different jobs, and it depends on unique individuals, diverse and independent. By doing this with this collective intelligence, they don't need to be told what to do. Everyone is sovereign over their own actions. They don't need org charts or targets or meetings or anything like that, because they share that purpose. So they're all making little imperfect decisions all the time. And if somebody comes along and goes, oh, we could do this better, that's what they do. This collective intelligence is super powerful because it allows us to not be told what to do, which is the way we like to live. But what's required for that? We have to have that diversity, and you have to be able to express that diversity, to not just be diverse, but to own it. And I think that sovereignty is super important. And it's an interesting thing about humans that we believe in this, you know, and we even say it's a God-given right, you know, so that's interesting because other animals don't have that. So what's important here is we got to have that sharing. Collective intelligence can't work without it. You know, if you're going to show up and contribute to a whole and then you don't get equal share in it, why would you do that? And so that shared purpose as well, that you have to be contributing to the same thing and have the same goals for the superorganism to to operate with collective intelligence. So now we go into the next phase. So we've got these swarm creativity, all these different jobs, and these diverse sovereign individuals doing their thing. And they're doing that. This is what they do as individuals, taking care of the symbionts. So collectively in teams, team of teams, we are gathering the resources, but the symbiotic upcycling happens within each of us. So that's our relationship with these other organisms. It's pretty powerful. That value stems from reciprocity, which stems from trust. So, and that comes from repeated interactions. And how do you have repeated interactions? You have to share a home. And so that's why place is so important in this, is because that's where trust comes from. So here we're in a situation today where our networks are global. And I've never met Brian in person, so how are we going to make this jump, and so it's worth thinking about, can we do this without place? Is there a way to look at networks that are extended in a way? I don't know. And so that's, I think, our challenge. And the other thing is this trust is like a commons. The superorganism members are contributing to that commons. And so if you don't have trust, if you don't have a shared purpose, that erodes. And we don't have any structures for doing this currently. So you see foraging people maintaining that commons. That's very important to them. So they are fiercely egalitarian and maintaining sovereignty for each other, because that's the basis of the collective intelligence. Leaders can be doing this, and this is what Indigenous people traditionally did, is that they would maintain this commons together. So they're trying to maintain their unique potential, their own identity as a superorganism. They're trying to protect the collective intelligence, and it all comes down to that strength of purpose, which is often expressed through a story and songs and things like this. So we've lost all of this, and we don't protect these spaces we're helping and sharing add up. If I can be as nice as I want, but I'm going to be taken advantage of because there's no boundary. So what happens with these superorganisms, here's another deep pattern, is that they're always plagued by parasites because they have such abundance. And so these parasites come in and they use deception. They mimic the scent of the colony to gain entry. Fake news is what they specialize in. And in fact, they even have what they call propaganda pheromones, where they put out this pheromone that this is the parasite that triggers the host to think they're being attacked, and they start going crazy and spinning out. And so then the parasitic queen can just go right into the colony, which I feel like we've been watching this on the news. Here's what happens. Parasite comes in. What it wants to do, it just wants these raw resources. So it captures the host labor. It actually, these zombie ants, it gets the host labor to work for them. So they'll take over the queen, and the host labor won't even realize that they're taking care of someone else's offspring, someone else's future. And then what happens is, because then the collective intelligence is, something to be suppressed, because you just want them to do what you want. And then what happens is, because link is severed, there's no more care for the symbionts, because who cares about that territory? We're just going to go to the next one. And so then you get waste accumulating and the symbionts die. And then pretty soon the raw resources dry up. And that's the cycle. And then the parasite goes on to the next planet or whatever, colony. How do we stop this kind of parasitism for ourselves? And I think a lot of it comes down to seeing fresh, seeing through other eyes again. So we have all these limiting beliefs, things that we think are true. We just assume they're true. But if you open your eyes and start looking, you see that there's far more there. We're in a situation where all these things are eroding. And this is the foundation of our superorganism success. So that's the work that I I think is really important to do. And that's the work we do in Borrego Springs is, increasing this curiosity, awakening it, and the ability to consider other perspectives and to care about them. And then to think critically, to notice these patterns, and then you can start thinking about how can you change them. And then you can imagine, what if things were different, and get creative about making them different. And when you have that ability, that sovereignty and that power, that you care, because it's hard to care when you can't make a difference. I think it's important, this intimate lived experience. And, we're so cut off. We don't even grow our own food. We don't even know, like I call DoorDash. I don't know where it comes from. It magically appears. And so this imagination, we need to cultivate that. I feel like kids can't even imagine a world of fresh, on-demand abundance. Going down the river, when we were hungry, we just pulled the fruit off the trees. When we were thirsty, we drank out of the river. And that on-demand, fresh abundance is our human birthright. And it's eroded. So if we can spark imagination and belief that these things can be again, I think that's exciting. I just want to share this. So we don't have any structures for protecting our commons or growing community value anymore. They've been slashed because parasites took it. What we know is that with superorganisms, they have these deep patterns that they protect their colonies' wealth with. And they turn out to be the exact same patterns that humans use to maintain successful commons. Elinor Ostrom, she won a Nobel Prize for that work, looking at the deep patterns of what all people that successfully share and maintain commons, what are the deep patterns? And so she found these deep patterns. Prosocial is a process, a methodology for putting these into place and becoming more conscious about them, and developing structures for growing common value again. And what's required, you think about Indigenous communities, they're waiting for the kids to grow up and to see what potential they have and how they can uniquely contribute, and so there's this sense of you're one of us and you're special and we need you. We don't have that. We don't, it's like, hey, can you pass the test? Oh, well, you got 90% of perfect. What is that? So yeah, I think we get some parasitic work to do. And we don't have the information we need, for all these reasons. And we don't have the permission we need to do the things ourselves. You think about collective intelligence feeding the symbiotic upcycling. We don't have the permission. You can't even take care of a tree in a freeway median, or, that's the city's job. That's not your job. And so this is Ishi. He was they call him the last Indian. He came in Northern California, I think in 1910, and he was alone out there for a long time. But he, still had all the skills, and there's a cool book that has the archery and all that in it. But you can really see where we've eroded the commons. We don't have the mentors and peers. We don't have shared purpose, and we certainly don't have that place source cultural identity anymore. So there's a lot of work we can do. And there's that orange line that is really, it's shared purpose. If you don't take care of the symbionts in the territory, the other species in the territory, it erodes your shared identity. And that's where we're at. So it's a whole system. And that's basically where we are at. And there goes the parasite. This is not a lost cause. Definitely not a lost cause. Because hosts are always evolving defenses, and they're trying to prevent the parasitic entry. They're trying to reveal parasites, transparency, and they're trying to jam their tactics. So I think this is really interesting in terms of elections and false news and what have you. Just a way of thinking of it in a more evolutionary sense. It's really trust. Trust is what we got to grow. And when we can do anything. And we got the elephant in the room, the mega again. That's the problem. It's in the water. And so I think about, can we take these fragments of stories and songs and regenerate our place-sourced identities, and then set boundaries around that where we cultivate those commons and protect them again? And can that be tied to water sources that feed our babies? You know, you may say I'm a dreamer, but I don't think I'm the only one. Okay, so I'm going to call it there. I can talk all day, but I won't. In my Patreon, I have a guided meditation I did, recorded, and it takes a lot of these concepts, but in a meditation form. So you can just kind of chill and be thinking about it. And I think it's really cool. I did it for some marketing executives. So it's there. Enjoy. Feel free to enjoy. Thank you all so much for coming. And I just love that you're here. And I think this is, it feels good.